structure your content and put up your best stuff so that you're found, I wanted to just take a breath, right? And go, is it? Because ultimately...
Hello and welcome to the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast and the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO and managing partner of Velocity B. It's Saturday the 28th of June, and in a moment I will join my chum, Chief Troublemaker at 7th Bear, Robert Rose, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, where we celebrate his birthday with a cocktail and I pick his brains on a marketing topic that is top of mind for me. Come say hello. You can find links to me and Robert and all the things we discuss at rockstarcmo.com. This week, what's on my mind is whether we should be training the LLMs with our content, like we did with Google, and Robert has a fabulous opinion on this. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Raise the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
When it comes to relevant content, you may have heard Jeff and me talk about the multis on this show. Multi-channel, multi-device, multi-persona, and multi-language. On that last one, let me ask, how confident are you that your content actually connects in every market? You're not sure? Well, it might be time to check out Phrase. In our experience, this stuff used to be hard, but Phrase makes it simple with its industry-leading AI localization platform that helps you deliver content in multiple languages without losing your tone, your message, or your mind. It automates the manual work, slashes review time, and gives you real data on what's working and where. Brands like Uber and Zendesk trust Phrase to scale their content across the globe and get it right every time. If you're serious about reaching more people and driving better results internationally, head over to phrase.com/MPN and take a look. That's phrase.com/MPN.
Oh, hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to the weekend. It is beautiful weather here, and I have a perfect summer cocktail for us because, I will say it, I guess when this airs, it will be my birthday. So,
I was going to wish you happy birthday.
Yeah. So, so I'm doing my favorite cocktail, which is going to be front and center all day for me on my day, which is called ranch water, which is the simplest drink. And the fun part about it is that, it becomes more ranch and less water over the course of the day. And so it's very simple. It is basically just tequila, your favorite tequila, and then fresh lime juice. And then the amount that you put in here is what changes. Topo Chico or sparkling water if you can't find Topo Chico. Topo Chico is sort of the classic ranch water. And so the reason they call it ranch water is because what they do is out on the ranch, they would put just a tiny amount of tequila in the water. And basically that's the water that the cowboys would drink all day, right? You would just have a little bit of tequila in the ranch water. And that was what you basically drank at lunch and, all throughout the day while you were working. And then, of course, you come home that evening and you have straight up tequila. But you can start to, put more and more tequila in as the day wears on, which is just a lovely way to spend your day. It's very refreshing because it's just sparkling water and lime, really. But, it becomes more tequila than anything else over the time. And then what I do is toward the afternoon, and this is where we'll start since it's the afternoon, we will put in into the tequila, you put it into a separate glass or something like that, and you let it sit for a couple of hours with a jalapeno. Let it marinate with that, and then you put that in there, and it makes for just a little bit of spice to the and it's just a fantastic, fantastic cocktail for summertime.
Nice. And it's your favorite, and it's your birthday, so happy birthday, and I hope you enjoy it. When this goes live tomorrow, because we're recording this on Friday, it'll be your birthday, so fantastic. And I think that you've educated me on the specific sparkling water. I think we've talked about ranch water before, so I'm going to need to look out for that. I'm not sure whether it's available here in the United Kingdom, but I shall have to have a look and raise one in your general direction tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Also, I like the way that you drink this, because it sounds like the way that I drink gin and tonics. They start off pretty reasonable measures, and then the tonic seems to run out.
That's right. It starts out as a tonic and gin, and it ends up as a gin and tonic. Yeah,
indeed. All right, mate. Well, I wish I had a better topic for a birthday topic, but while we're sipping these, one of the things I've been listening to. I keep mentioning your podcast on the show and your writing on Content Marketing Institute. And one of the things I've enjoyed is you've been talking about whether we should be training the LLMs with our content, right? Whether we should be training ChatGPT. And there's a lot of, and we seem to be sort of just like blindly strolling towards the fact that, yes, of course we want to educate the LLMs, because then we'll get found. But you made a really good point that you believe there are lessons to be learned from the rise of Google, and that we risk repeating the mistakes we made 20 odd years ago with our content. Let me just fire you off with that one.
Yeah, well, I think the general answer is, sort of the headline answer is that nobody knows, right? No, and what is so off-putting is the rush, the pell-mell rush to do it yet again, right? And what I was referring to is that, when this happened in the 2001, 2002, 2003 timeframe, as Google became sort of a thing and search engine optimization became a thing, and you remember the days where we focused on building gigantic websites, with every possible permutation of an article or content that would match our keyword strategy, and the idea was more and more and more and more and more content. It was not uncommon to have, a 10 or 15,000 page website with your content on it, just in order to be found for that quote unquote long tail search. And, in the beginning, it was all good, right? We were found, the organic search worked, and if you were good at content, you ranked higher. And if you were good at SEO, you ranked higher. And then what happened is that slowly over time, and it's the classic crab or frog in the boiling pot, right? You just don't even realize that your business model is being, you are the business model, basically. That Google started to deprecate organic search and basically elevate the paid advertising. And so you fell further and further down the page until now, where paid search can literally be the top 7 or 8 answers on a search page, and you're relegated to page 2. And so that business, so we basically built Google's business model for them by putting in our valuable ideas expressed in a very structured way. Basically, in other words, we structured it for them. We did all the work of structuring the content very well for them to basically because the promise was, no, you're optimizing it for yourself. And it's like, no, we're really optimizing it for you.
Yeah.
And then we did it again when Facebook came out and all the other social media platforms came out and said basically, hey, we're now we want to be the destination, the quote unquote town square for the discussions to happen. And so you should build your audiences on our platforms. And we went, yes, we should do that, and rushed pell-mell into that. And then basically they started, and we built communities, quote unquote, communities in the 2013, 2014, 2015 timeframe, even to the point where there was true and real argument over whether we should actually abandon websites and make our web presence a Facebook page. And those discussions really happened. And then all of a sudden they started deprecating organic content and deprecating where organic reached single digits, and now are in the 2 to 3% organic reach phase. And and all the time they're both Google and Facebook and Twitter in the days and LinkedIn, and they're all telling us this is good for you. This is this is your vegetables. You should eat them. And and we went, okay. And all I'm asking is that now that the AI companies are basically saying here's the same deal that you've done for 25 years, and it's good for you to be found in an answer, and you should structure your content and put up your best stuff so that you're found. I wanted to just take a breath, right? And go, is it? Because ultimately, and we can talk about the impossibility, because that's what really is at stake here, is the impossibility of actually maintaining any level of consistency in that. Because, you search for something and you get an answer. The answer may be 3 different sources in 3 different searches of the same exact query, right? Not just with different people, but the same person. So there's the fluidity or ephemerality of the actual search itself. But more importantly to me is, so what, right? In other words, if I'm one of the 3 or 4 cited sources, okay, what am I after? Like, you know what I mean? What am I hoping for? Am I hoping that they click? Well, we're seeing the data show that they don't. Are we hoping that they look at the cited source and go, that's something I want to go look at later? That's also not happening. And so are we hoping for the impression? I mean, is it really an impression? It's literally just a automated generated thumbnail of the screenshot of the page. And it's not even our thumbnail. Like, we don't even get to pick it. And then it's just scraping the metadata off for the contextualization of the answer and the thing. So it's not even something that we can design from an impression standpoint until, by the way, we have to pay for it, which is coming. And all of that is, in a sense, it feels like a very familiar road to me, which is we don't get to pick the experience. We don't get to pick the content. It's at best an impression, if you even can argue that. And so my question is, and where I want us to take a breath is, even if we could, why would we want to?
Yes.
Right. What's the value? Like, what's the value of being found? And there may be one. I don't, that's the question. There may be one that I'm not aware of, that human behavior will change based on the ways that these start to get presented. But right now, I'm really struggling and wrestling with, why do I even care about being found in an answer when I would rather say, hey, if you want the real human generated pointed answer where I'm not going to be compared to Bob's blog and some other, kind of janky other site where my answer will be averaged in with them. It's like, I want to give you the pure distillation of my point of view. And I can only do that if I control where you find that.
Yeah. This is really interesting because it feels like, and to your point about the current Google search experience has now moved on from what you described, which is now not only is there the paid, there's the AI stuff at the top as well. So by the time anybody gets to organic, you're already on page 2. It doesn't really, it's just dreadful, isn't it? And I think that,
as my friend Arnie Keene used to say, the best place to hide a dead body is page 2 of Google search results, right?
Yeah. And and there is, isn't there? There's evidence that organic search traffic has taken a bit of a nosedive. But you do feel like this fear of like, well, what else are you going to do? We got to play with these guys because they dominate everything. So I think there's a fear inside marketing that's driving us towards like, yeah, we know they're fucking us, but hey, we got to play the game.
Right. Because total abstinence isn't isn't acceptable either, right? I mean, you can't not play the game because, as the famous quote goes, you may hate gravity, but gravity doesn't care, right? So it is the oxygen we have in the room, so we have to be able to deal with the situation. But here's what I do know: have a high degree of confidence in. There is no first mover advantage here. In other words, there's not going to be a situation where if I rank now for a particular answer, then I'm going to establish my place and have it be established for all time, right?
Yeah.
The entirety of the foundation of the way that AI related search and feeding the LLMs has to work is that it has to be always on the lookout for a better answer. And so there really is no sense in rushing into this because there just is no first mover. Unlike SEO, right? Where if you could rank high for a key phrase or a key word that was just on the cusp of taking off and becoming viral, and a perfect example of this is content marketing. So when Joe and I in 2008 were trying to look at this, there were innumerable phrases that were ranking higher than content marketing. Things like article marketing and thought leadership and inbound marketing and all these sort of phrases that were way more popular to what we should have called content marketing back in the day. But we decided on content marketing because it was a thing that we could own and we felt like it was going to become more and more and more and more popular, and it got more and more and more popular. And therefore, you can actually see in 2008 and 2009 and 2010, and it wasn't us, by the way, it was the zeitgeist of the market. You can see the hockey stick growth of content marketing. We happened to be there first. We was like, yes, that's great for us. We played the slots and the slots paid off. And basically, we got the benefit of that because we had established ourselves early as the definitive place. And so Google saw it as such. And because we had age and link authority and all those kinds of things, then it sort of stayed as the answer. I don't believe that the same is going to be true with an answer engine, right? With the LLMs. It's always got to be looking at better cited sources. So there seems to not be. And again, I maybe end up being wrong here, but I have a pretty high confidence that there is no first mover advantage into trying to establish yourself as the answer for some popular query.
Yeah. I love this. I love this topic with you. And it's opening up so many questions in my mind about how we should approach it and how, what level of education we should do. But also one of the things that came through from what you were just saying, I was thinking about was at the moment, in order to get people to click through to your content that they found through a search on ChatGPT, you're depending on them to do the right thing, which is click through and check their sources and do all that good stuff, right? And so that requires a discipline on the side of the user, which, I mean, you said about user behavior. Let's face it, the majority of us are lazy. That's the defining user behavior, isn't it? And they're going to grab the answer they get, which is a combination of what you said and what Bob Whatsit said and Janky Thingamajig said, and put that into their report or their article they're doing. And they're not going to click through, and therefore nobody's going to get the links, which is probably what's happening right now, right? And when I was thinking about that,
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, because you look at the two use cases, right? The two use cases for why you would want cited sources. One is you're just looking for an answer. What's the best Mexican restaurant in my area, right? So all I'm looking for is I don't need cited sources for that, right? In other words, I'm not looking for peer-reviewed sort of science papers on the idea of which Mexican restaurant is going to be best. So I'm pretty much going to trust, even if I'm a relatively discerning individual, whatever comes up, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the small percentage click through to go, okay, let's go check the veracity of that list or whatever, right? So you're going to basically have a averaging of multiple, and you can see this already happening, by the way, right? Go look at, what is getting ranked for best this or best that, and what you see is the listicle blog posts, right? Which are often paid for, often highly manipulated by vendors, et cetera, et cetera. So they're looking at not great sources already for the best fill in the blank. Having said that, the answer is going to be fine, right? The answer is going to be certainly adequate. And therefore, whether you rank or not, is important. But basically, it's if you're in the answer, great. And if you're not in the answer, too bad, you're not going to be in the answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so so you're not going to get a click based on that.
Yeah.
The second use case is, yes, you need some sort of cited source because you're writing something, you're researching something, you're putting together a business plan, you're doing a school project, you're doing something where the source of the material really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And there, again, they're not discerning, right? It's not a discerning thing, right? Even if you use deep research in some of the LLM things, you're getting some practitioner's blog versus Harvard Business Review versus Wikipedia versus Reddit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's great, but it's now averaging all of those answers together to come up with an answer to your question. And none of you, Harvard Business Review, Reddit, or you, may have answered that question specifically in that way. And so without them having the discernment to say, okay, which one of these is the source of that information, it may be none of the above, right? Because the LLM maybe just be postulating based on all of the answers it looks at and says, here's the answer, but nobody actually ever says that, right?
Yeah. No, it's the dependency on user behavior is going to be the problem there, and also, and it depends on the query. Exactly what you're saying. It depends on the query you're making. So it used to be back in the day, and I'm sure you remember, some of the highest performing SEO content was you describing the category in which your product was in. So what is a web content management solution? What is whatever it is, right? Explanatory content performed really well because people were looking for answers, and they would probably look at a number of different articles on the same topic, and yours would be one of them, and you'd get some juice out of that. Now, if you describe on your website what is a web content management solution, and you ask Google that, it'll come up in its AI produced thing. It'll be your version, somebody else's version, and it'll be just enough maybe for whatever that audience needed. So they'll never click through. They won't need to. The use case for somebody clicking through diminishes, doesn't it?
Indeed.
From your example.
Well, that's exactly it, right? The use case for somebody clicking through really does diminish because you're either but at the same time, here's the wrestly part of this, right? Which is because at the same time, what you're hoping for, because you do have to play this game at some level.
Yes.
So what you're hoping for is to become a good enough in your cited answer, right? In other words, so going back to your best Mexican restaurant, right?
Yeah.
You want to show up in that list, right? So in other words, okay, so, and one of my recommendations here is, okay, so what do we do about that? Well, I have basically, my recommendation is you've got to co-opt, right? So in other words, it has nothing to do with your website. It has everything to do with getting on those lists on those sites, right? In other words, getting your name on the list of the LinkedIn post and the Yelp reviews and the Wikipedia page, and so that you show up in those co-opted cited sources.
Yeah.
But you're only going to show up in those co-opted cited sources in a very small way. So your goal is that you show up in those lists. And then what happens is they go, I'm going to seek that answer out separately. In other words, they're going to then do a Google search for your name or your company name or your brand or your product or whatever it is, and then go visit you on your website to learn more about that particular thing. Now, the question is, what is it that I'm making available that's not available on AI that I can actually, that I can actually make the content available so that it actually is pure, so that I'm not basically asking Google that same question. In other words, I'm seeking it out. I want it pure from the horse's mouth in that particular case.
God, that is opening up a whole nother conversation there. That's fascinating. And I hope, we're coming up to time, and I need to make the segue to, where might people find content that really does educate these LLMs better than Bob's Shanky website?
Bob's Shanky website. That's a new company name. Here's the thing. I'm wrestling with it because the whole point of this is not, it's a meta conversation for me because we're wrestling with this now for our own website, which of course you can find at seventhbear.com, but we're really wrestling with, okay, what should you find there? Right. And so, you'll find it there currently, but we're struggling with it too, just so everybody knows.
Yeah. Well, and also we would recommend you go straight to seventhbear.com. You don't ask ChatGPT how to do the things that you described there, right? So.
Well, go to ChatGPT if you want to, but just remember that it's not ChatGPT that's going to give you the great content. It's somebody else, right?
I love it, mate. And when people spin the dial on the internet, where they're going to find you?
LinkedIn is it. Well, I'm trying to be on all the platforms for the same reason we just had this conversation, but LinkedIn is primarily where you'll find me.
Splendid. And most importantly for me, will you be in the bar next week?
Oh, indeed.
Oh, splendid. Because I'd love to carry on with this conversation. I know we're probably not going to talk about it next week, but we'll definitely come back to this. I think this is going to be something that runs and runs. So I look forward to that.
Yep, indeed.
Cheers, baby. Thank you, Robert. As I said, they're a fascinating topic, and let's see how this unfolds, as it seems nobody is really sure the true impact on our marketing strategies going forward right now. So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar. Thank you for joining us. You can find links to Robert's podcast and his work at Seventh Bear, and all my links in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com, where you can also find links to our newsletter, blog, previous episodes, and all the things. Coming up this week on Rockstar CMO FM, Cassie McKnight will be joining me in the studio on Wednesday for her monthly chat about all things content, and Robert will be back in the bar at the weekend. In the meantime, just remember, as Dewey Finn said in the School of Rock, you can't just say it, man. You've got to feel it in your blood and guts if you want to rock.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.